Hey guys, welcome to Amity Tracks. Today we're going to be looking at the discography of Pete Townsend. So if you go way back, like one of the, I don't know, maybe the third, fourth, I don't know, one of the earliest videos we ever made on this channel, and I think it was the very first artist, that we did a video kind of focused on an artist. We did The Who. And we did a Who ranking, the countdown, and looking at the whole discography and all that stuff. So go check that out if you want to see what we thought of or think of the Who. Uh, Keep in mind, with the caveat that that was one of our very first videos. We were still finding our way, but I think the content is there. So anyway, I've always wanted to also do a video on Pete Townsend's solo career. I love it. I think it's pretty fascinating, and I think it's very distinct from his work, obviously, with the Who. And I think part of it was, he could explore some, I guess, more personal things than he could, within the context of the Who. And he's, I guess, one of the intellectuals of rock, right? So he's always got these ideas, and he's always thinking, and I guess there were certain things that he just couldn't quite do with the Who, and so he was able to kind of get that outlet, I think, on his solo work. I'm going to be honest, and I said this in the Who video way back when. I mean, Roger Daltrey is a great, like one of the great, rock belters, rock singers. I've always really preferred Pete Townsend's vocals, though. I've always, I don't know, a bit more vulnerable. I mean, he could kind of get some grit in there if he wanted, but also kind of hit this vulnerability that most of the time Daltrey just couldn't hit. And then having the bombast of Entwistle and Moon behind you, it's just so I his solo stuff I think is a different thing. Now, I think sometimes his concepts get in the way. How I mean, with the Who, you got Tommy, you got Quadrophenia, Who Sell Out. I mean, he loves these concepts, rock operas, concept albums. If you look at his solo work, 4 out of the 7 uh, are kind of concept records in his solo work too. One of them's a collaboration, leaving like 2 just basically like straightforward, collections of songs. So sometimes I think that gets in his way a little bit, but even those are pretty great. So we do have 7. He's got 7 studio records. I'm including the collaboration records, so 7. To count down, we'll rank them. Of course, I want to talk about them, and then at the end we'll talk about some compilations and live work and all that kind of stuff. So coming in at number 7, I think fairly easily for me. I just have this on CD. I've seen it on vinyl, but I don't think I'd spend any money on it on vinyl because I don't really like it that much. But that's Iron Man. Here, I'll take the. There we go. Iron Man. Well, it says The Iron Man, the musical by Pete Townsend. And, based on the Ted Hughes, children's story, basically. Um, and yeah, I mean, I get he gets kind of caught up in telling the story. Now, there's some interesting guests he has on here. I mean, Townsend does sing some of these songs himself, but he basically is trying to tell the story kind of through the album, so he has different artists play different characters. And Nina Simone is on here, so that's kind of interesting. That had to have been one of her. I don't know. I don't know when she died, but I can't imagine she was around too much longer after this. This was 1989, by the way, when this came out. Kind of coincided with that Who reunion. I saw that tour, played the Astrodome, in Houston, with Stevie Ray Vaughan opening up. That was kind of cool. But so yeah, this kind of coincided with that. So I remember on that tour they actually played 1 or 2 songs from here. That, yeah, Dig and Friend is a Friend. I think that was in that set list. Didn't really fit, yeah, in my view. But yeah, it does have some interesting guests on here. Well, the Who. or at least Daltrey and Entwistle are on a couple songs. Dig and what's the other one they're on? Fire. And my favorite is John Lee Hooker plays the actual Iron Man, which Over the Top actually is probably my favorite song on here, with John Lee Hooker vocals. And then I Eat Heavy Metal. It's kind of fun hearing Hooker's growl on that, but yeah, I mean it kind of sounds late '80s. Townsend, I don't think, is at the top of his writing game, and it's basically he's trying to kind of make it fit to tell this children's story, and yeah, it's all right. Not really my thing though. Coming in number 6 is another concept album, and his last full album release, under his, as a solo artist, 1993. Now, I used to have a copy of this. I think I purged it. I wish I hadn't, because there's some stuff on it I really like. But an editor can throw it up here. But Derelict. Now, here's the story here. This is a really convoluted, even for Pete, a really convoluted story. It's this aging rock star gets kind of inspired again based on this ploy put together by his cynical manager and this deceptive music critic who plays this fan, but it's actually this music critic, and then he figures out it's her, but he plays along because he's fallen in love with her, and she despises him. Whatever. I just wish sometimes he would throw these concepts aside and just put out some great songs. But there are some great songs on here. Now, there's two versions of this, and you really should get one over the other. Editor can throw them up here. There's the original version, like with all of the dialogue, and it's just totally weighed down with trying to tell the story. And then they got wise, and very soon after that, there is a music only, like just the songs version. Get that, because in my opinion, I mean, English Boy, that could have been a killer Latter Day Who song if he had just put it with the Who. Uh, yeah, I mean, there's some really good songs on there. What's also interesting is he brings in some of the musical bits from Lifehouse and puts them in, and they're actually pretty cool. But anyway, Psychodelic. All right. Number 5. I'm going back to his very. Now he kind of did some collaboration type things before but this is kind of the first like solo album that's sort of credited to him as a solo artist. 1972, with the, I think, witty title "Who Came First?" And there's Pete Townsend, who came first, and there's the Meher Baba, which is his guru at the time, and you have to understand the background on this. A lot of this stuff is sort of dedicated to him, but there's some really good songs on there too. I think it's notable because there are 3 Lifehouse demos. Just real quick, I keep referencing Lifehouse. That was what eventually became Who's Next, maybe the Who's most celebrated record. But it was this huge concept that Townsend was putting together that kind of fell apart, and has sort of become this kind of legend. And he's attempted to assemble, since then. Here's what Lifehouse might have been, like those kind of things. But there are 3 songs, Pure and Easy, which really should have been on Who's Next, but ended up on Odds and Sods. What else? Time is Passing, I think, right? And yeah, and Let's See Action. Although titled here, Nothing Is Everything, but Let's See Action. But I think those are the 3 kind of Lifehouse leftovers. So that's pretty good. Sheraton Gibson is awesome. Just this solo acoustic thing where Townsend really does that great finger picking. And yeah, it's just about kind of being bored in a hotel room on the road. But it's really a great song. Yeah, I like it. Some of this, I think, is sort of bogged down to his sort of devotion to his guru, Meher Baba, but Baba O'Reilly, right? At least half of that song's title come from Meher Baba. But yeah, it's good. But I like some other Townsend stuff more. Number 4 Number four is kind of the sleeper here, as in, when I was sort of preparing this video, kind of going through this stuff again. 'Cause some of these I hadn't listened to in a while, and man, this just hit me. This hit me this time around. Love it. I think it's fantastic, and it is the collaboration record, 1977 Rough Mix with Ronnie Lane. So there's Pete and Ronnie. Ronnie Lane of the Small Faces and the Faces. I really dig Ronnie Lane. I mean, I love his work with the Faces. I mean, I like the songs that he takes the lead vocals on. Like Debris and just some other stuff. So I always really like Ronnie Lane. So I think it's cool that they get together. Now it's kind of interesting. Ronnie Lane really did kind of want this to be like a collaborative album. They write songs together, and Townsend, was pretty honest and said, "Look, I don't really co-write things," which is true. You don't see a lot of co-writing with Townsend. Um, and so when you listen to it, it sounds more like just sort of trading songs. That's kind of what it is. There's a Ronnie Lane tune and a Townsend tune, a Ronnie Lane tune and a Townsend tune. So yeah, it's less like a collaboration and more just sort of them sharing space on the record. But I don't know. It's cool. It's cool. Charlie Watts plays a little drums on here. Eric Clapton shows up. So there's some cool names, but it's actually very laid back and relaxed. My Baby Gives It Away is a great song. As far as the Townsend songs, Street in the City is real nice with some of that orchestration in there. Heart to Hang On To is actually a pretty good, I think one of the few songs where I think Townsend and Ronnie Lane do sort of trade some vocals in the same song. It's a great song. And Misunderstood, which is just it's one of the funniest set of lyrics Townsend, has ever. It's so Townsend, he basically like saying he wants to be seen as this tortured artist because you're taken more seriously. It's like, I want to be misunderstood, I want to be misconstrued. And it's just sort of a send up, kind of, I guess, self aware of how he is sometimes. But it's a really funny song. It's a great song. I I really dig this. I was I've always thought it was like good, but then I don't know, just spinning it recently, it hit me. It did. But the top three are the top three. I mean, I always knew these are going to be the top three. This run of records that he does in the early to mid '80s, I just think is phenomenal. These three records, and I mean, I've always said, I said it in the Who video, that you look at some of the two Who records that came out around this same time, It's Hard and Face Dances. You can kind of tell where Pete's saving his best material for his solo stuff. I always said if he hadn't have put these three solo records out and just focused on the Who and saved these songs for some Who records, plus some of the better songs that were on those '80s Who records, you would have had a great run of Who records in the '80s. I mean, really, because there's some fantastic songs on these three records. I think two of them are 4 stars, and my number one pick is a 5-star record to me. So just top notch. Now it's kind of interesting. I mean, right up to the moment I was recording this, I had this in a different order, 3 and 2. I mean, they've always been right there together. My number one's always been my number one, but 3 and 2, right there. And right before I started the video, I flipped them. So, um, so at 3 now, from 1980, I've got Empty Glass, which is one of my all-time favorite album covers. I love that album cover. It's so great. And they're on the back too. Um, yeah, this is so awesome. I mean, opening with Rough Boys, which is just this sort of declaration that, he's not done yet, and he's still a badass. Kind of, directed at some of those punks. Um, I Am an Animal is really good. Um, I love the title track. Kind of goes between sort of rocking, and then it has this like really kind of lovely refrain in there. It's so good. And of course, the hit on here is "Let My Love Open the Door," which was a spiritual song. Um, I think he was talking to God or whatever, but or from the perspective of God, I guess. Um, but He sort of doubles as, sounds like he's singing it to, a girlfriend or something too, an earthly love. Sounds just as good that way too. Really catchy song. And it was a hit for him and would have been a great Who hit too, with him singing it. I mean, God, it would have been good. So yeah. And no one gives an F. Keith Moon is dead, which is that great what is that Jules and Jim, I think. That line is in that song. That's so good. All right. My number two, which sometimes has been my number three, but now it's two, is 1985's White City, a novel. You can see here there's all kinds of written story here, which whatever. I know he did make some sort of film out of this too. This is one where, okay, yeah, it's a concept album, whatever, but to me it just works as a killer set of songs. It's so good. Man, he is writing complex arrangements and music with jazz influence, but he still rocks, and there's some R&B influence. It's so good, so good. It opens with that killer "Give Blood." David Gilmour plays guitar on some of these tunes. I know he co-wrote actually one or two of them. And I think he's on "Give Blood," right? I know he's on "White City Fighting." You hear Gilmour's guitar all over that thing. But so good. Face to Face it's an odd hit. I don't know if we call it a hit, but it was the one that was sort of pushed from this record. And it's got this interesting kind of off rhythm jazz stuff in there, and it's pretty cool. Very cool song. But yeah, I Am Secure, White City Fighting is great. Hiding Out is really nice. I love Secondhand Love. That has got such a driving groove on that, and then Townsend's like shouted vocals are so good. Yeah, this is great. This is verge of brilliant. I think I would recommend the reissued CD version because there are some bonus tracks on here. Two of them are awesome. Night School, which is just an extra track that didn't make the record, and then his great cover of Save It for Later. Is it from the English Beat? I think the original did that. I've always loved Pete Townshend's cover of that. He's done it live for a long time, but this is he had a nice studio cover of that song on the CD, so it's worth it. And the CD's been remastered, and it sounds great. It sounds really good. All right. So those of you who know his albums know what I have at number one. For me, it's no question. This has always been my number one for him. I think this is one of the most brilliant records. I mean, it's high up there in my rankings of all time records, period, by anybody. I think it's got, I don't care, put it up with Bob Dylan, whatever. I think it's got some of those brilliant lyrics I've ever heard. And that's 1982. All the Best Cowboys Have Chinese Eyes, which also I would recommend the remaster CD because there are some bonus tracks on here. 3 songs that didn't make the record from the sessions. So I would also recommend the CD there. But anyway, All the Best Cowboys Have Chinese Eyes. What's really interesting, I remember reading, I think it might have been here in his autobiography, which I'll talk about in a second. But he mentioned he was like really kind of wrapped up in a lot of drugs and stuff like that in the early 80s. And kind of like with David Bowie and Station to Station, Townsend claims to really have very little to no memory of recording this album at all. Writing it, recording it. Some very odd androgynous type photos in there. Whatever, no matter. It's still incredible. I think it's a masterpiece, 5-star record. I mean, great music, great songs. And this is one where I think a lot of these songs maybe would not have translated so well with The Who. I mean, these really are personal songs and kind of need Townsend's touch. Although there's one's Exquisitely Bored. I always have thought Exquisitely Bored would have been a killer Who song. But I don't know, maybe Slit Skirts. I know somebody saved me. I know the Who did do some versions of these songs, at least recorded them in the studio. I think they're bonus tracks on some of the reissues of like either Face Dances or It's Hard. But anyway, I mean, The Sea Refuses No River, Exquisitely Bored is so great. Everything. Stop Hurting People, Face Dances Part Two. I love this record from start to finish, and it's brilliant. And honestly, the two songs, Slit Skirts and Somebody Saved Me, I think lyrically are so genius. I mean, Somebody Saved Me. It's couched in this story of the girl he didn't get, but he's so glad he didn't because he would never have been able to let her go. It's just the way he writes it is so good. And Slit Skirts, I think, addresses aging. The aging rock star, which is a theme Townsend has been obsessed with forever, but aging so brilliantly. Slit skirts. Janie doesn't wear no slit skirts. I don't ever wear no ripped shirts. Can't pretend that growing old never hurts. I mean, it's just. I mean, really kind of addressing that head on. It's so. This is such a brilliant record. If this is something you've passed up, try it out. Try it out. Well, all right. Though those are my rankings for Townsend's studio work. Let's talk briefly about a couple of comps and all that. Now, there is this great Scoop series. This is a double record. This is the first Scoop album. There's been another Scoop, and then there's a third Scoop, right? And there's been comps of Scoops. But on vinyl, I just have the first one, which is this double album from '83. And these are demos going all the way back to the late '60s. And Townsend is famous for having these really meticulous demos, where he records these demo tracks to give to the Who or for himself, and they are great listens in their own right. And I think he recognized that, so he's released this series, this Scoop series of of his demos, and they're really in their own right fantastic listens. I love the So Sad About Us. I think that's so great on here. Yeah, just a lot of great stuff there, and some kind of harder to find stuff as well. So, some stuff that maybe didn't appear on some of the records. As far as hits compilations, there's a few out there. I just have this one, which is very good. This is it's the best of Pete Townsend, and then the subtitle there is "Cool, Walking Smooth, Talking Straight, Smoking, Fire Stoking." Typical verbose Townsend. But yeah, this is good. It's good. It's a good sampler of just his, as it promises, his solo work. Um, I mean, obviously there's some good stuff that's not there. I would have made some other choices here and there, but it is a good sampler. The two bonus tracks are actually really good. Uneasy Street is a track from the Derelict sessions that didn't make it on this, and it would have been one of the better songs on there. It's a really good song. And then he has the original Let My Love Open the Door on here, but a really nice remix that, like, I think slyly incorporates some of the chord structure of Bobo O'Reilly, but it's I don't know, it sounds like if Peter Gabriel took the song and like slowed it down and made it real moody, but it's really good. I mean, I really like that version. I think it was used in some movie. What was it? Is that Tom Cruise movie? The uh, drawing a blank. Anyway, I don't know. I think it was used in a movie. But yeah, this is pretty good. And then there's some other comps out there that I think are all right. Real quick, live. He's got a decent number of live albums. Some of them, you can kind of order online. They're not like broadly released. Like, I don't know. I found this. This is good. Pete Townsend live. The I guess a benefit show. Yeah, there's some good stuff on here. But I'll tell you the one live album of his that I really, really, really like a lot. Is Deep End Live. I think this is fantastic. This is from '86, so it's kind of the tail end of that, my favorite period of his, that early to mid '80s period. This is kind of interesting because it doesn't feature a lot of the songs on those records. It's kind of more of an eclectic. He throws in some Who songs on there, like Behind Blue Eyes, I'm One, Pinball Wizard. His cover of Save It for Later is on there, which is great. I love that. Even I Put a Spell on You, I Sight to the Blind, some of those, which I guess had been sort of partly covers, or I Sight to the Blind, from Tommy, but had been kind of, I know that was based on an old blues song. I Put a Spell on You as a cover. After the Fire, which is a really great song of his that he wrote and gave to Roger Daltrey that became kind of a minor hit, solo hit on one of Roger Daltrey's solo albums. And and Pat Townsend does a great version of it here. It's nice to get a Pete Townsend version of that song. So yeah, kind of an eclectic thing. This sort of grows on you, but I really like it. It's a really good live album. Yeah, so that's it. I did want to mention, I know he's put out recently like multi-volume, trying to like give you the definitive Lifehouse finally. I don't have that. I'd be interested, but I just haven't shelled out the money. Finally, I would like to recommend his autobiography, Who I Am. As you might imagine, it's pretty brutally honest. He doesn't shy away from some controversial issues and things. But as you might also imagine, he's an awesome storyteller. So this is one of the better, you know, rock autobiographies I've ever read. So I recommend that. And it covers his whole career, obviously. Well, that's it. That's my Pete Townsend stuff. What do you guys think in the comments? How would you rank his records? What records of his do you like? What do you think of his solo career in general? Well, please do like the videos and hit the bell for notifications. Subscribe if you haven't done that. All that great stuff. And we'll see you next time on Amity Tracks.